was had to be over, and Pauline will be out of school for a while. And also members of the Student Leadership Committee at FHS are going to the MIT to next Monday to share their mission and further develop their action steps to like improve to improve respect among peer-to-peer, I guess among peers and people at high school. And then also this Thursday, the FHS and FMS Spring Band concert will take place at 6:30. So if any of you want to come and join. And then also this Friday, the track team will be hosting track meet at Freeport. Please feel free to come. And also, I learned that Ms. Goodstein has been hosting conversations about installing solar panels at Freeport. And also on May 13th, there will be a spring choral showcase in the Freeport Performing Arts Center. And also on May 22nd, at Freeport High School in the gym, there will be a Red Cross blood drive. So if anyone wants to donate blood. And on May 21st, there will be a college fair from 6:30 to 7:30 at Cheverus High School.
Great, thank you. There we go. Nice. Yeah. Loud enough. All right, and that's the exciting about the band and the choir concerts coming up. So there's lots of good performances. Thank you. All right, so now we are at our public comment section, and if we do have people that are here for public comment, I'm just going to read a little bit of our guidelines. In order that we can hear from the largest number of voices, each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes for comments. For those who have not participated in our meetings before, these are a few of the rules. We ask that speakers identify themselves, name and town of residence. Please try to be brief and not repeat yourself. We know discussions of school-related issues can get emotional, but please remember our children are watching and we are neighbors, so please be civil. We will not permit profanity or shouting at one another or comments that disparage and attack individuals or groups of individuals. Speakers should direct all comments to the board. This is an opportunity to the board to listen to the public, to the opinions of the public that relate to school and education matters. It is not a public debate or conversation, so no questions should be directed to the board. And the board will not be responding to any questions or comments if they are asked. We want to listen. The board will not permit complaints or allegations against staff members. These are personnel matters which the board is not permitted to hear in public. If there are complaints against staff, these will be handled appropriately through our complaint procedure, KEB. And if you're interested in a two-way conversation, on the RSU5 website, individual emails and phone numbers are available for board members and the superintendents. So thank you for your patience, and if anybody would like to speak, you can come up to the podium and state your name and where you're from.
Hi everyone, my name is Phyllis Latham. I am the school counselor at Freeport Middle School. And I had to do a quick edit to make sure that what I wanted to talk about fit your rules, so bear with me a little bit on my thoughts. But I'll start with, as someone who rarely reaches out in this capacity, I write today compelled by a deep concern for the direction of leadership hiring in our district. With 36 years of education, or being in education, 17 of those proudly spent at RSU5, I feel it is important that you hear directly from someone who has been deeply embedded day to day in the realities of our schools. I have watched with growing concern as highly committed individuals from within our system have been passed over for leadership roles. These decisions have had a direct impact on staff morale, student outcomes, and our overall school stability. A couple of examples I can't share because it may identify, but several of the people that I know that have applied for leadership positions are people with doctorates, with Harvard education degrees, Teacher of the Year finalists. We're talking highly educated educators who may not have the years of experience, but that's my concern that I'll continue with. Let me see. In the moment of uncertainty, what I've seen is several of the people that have been passed over stood up to take us through a really tough time. I know everyone's aware that Freeport Middle School had some situations with our administration this year. And I just want to make sure that those are taken into account over how many years of experience somebody may have. My concern is, why are we not mentoring some of these leaders so that they can move into higher levels, so they can move into administrative roles? I think we do that for students, and that's something we're really proud of, and I'm concerned that we're not taking that into account when we're looking at our hiring process. Not everyone may have the years of experience, but how wonderful would it be if they were able to get that mentorship here, to get that under their belt. I strongly urge central office to consider long-term benefits of investing in our own educators. We must recognize and nurture the talent already in our schools. The district's failure to do so not only undermines staff morale, but it also sends a discouraging message to those who have committed themselves to the community and to their education, that their dedication and contributions are not valued. Whatever districts are fortunate enough to hire these exceptional educators will undoubtedly benefit from their passion and leadership at our expense. How wonderful would it be for our students to see these leaders moving on within their own communities, to see them at the grocery store and know that they've bettered themselves through the higher education and have been able to stay with Freeport and have people who can mentor them through so that they can take on those roles. It's just a real concern to me. It's not just one person. I've seen it happen multiple times. And the result of one was horrible, and we're dealing with it to this day. And I'm concerned what that's going to be like next year as well. We're kind of back in the same boat. So thank you.
Thank you, Buzz.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, Moon. It's good to hear you. Good to see you. My name's Mary Faderly. I'm a math teacher at the middle school, and I too am standing up with concerns. I didn't know no names, so again, I've edited, and I'm going to try my best here. Today was a really sad and discouraging day at Freeport Middle School. The staff learned that our acting principal was not chosen to be the principal for the coming year. Some of you may not be aware of the difficult year we've had at FMS. The principal who was hired for the year to lead us struggled. Nope, can't say that.
Sorry.
Okay, sorry, strike that. We had a lot of difficulties this year. They could be felt by the staff, and it could be seen in student behaviors. Not sure what I can say, but we were left sort of high and dry. No explanation, no goodbye, and the person who had to step in was able to pick up the pieces. For those who don't know, that person is, don't want to say too much identifying information, I guess, but is a dedicated, caring, kind, and knowledgeable educator. She was able in a very brief time to right our ship. We felt abandoned, and that person restored trust and guidance, and along with the acting assistant principal has made FMS feel the way it should. Welcoming, safe, and focused on the needs of students. For 7 months this year, it often didn't feel that way. And it may sound like an overstatement to say that this person turned things around, and to hear today that this qualified educator was not hired as our principal raises questions and red flags. And I just want to encourage you all to ask those questions and look into why it was that she was not offered this position. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Anyone else? Nope. Okay. All right. Thank you, and we will move on to our number 8, which is the reports from the superintendent, and she has a strategic plan update for us. Jean, are you going to use the screen up here?
I am going to
Okay,
use this.
all right, thank you.
There's also a handout in your packet. Technology works. We'll be up and running in a minute. Okay, this evening I'm going to update the board on the work that's happened this year with our strategic planning process. And we know we're really just at that beginning of our journey, and our strategic plan is going to be a roadmap for success for all students. Back in the fall, we started with getting an inclusive membership for our strategic planning process committee. We wanted to make sure that there were parents, community members from each town. There's a student rep on there, and we're looking for a new student rep because our student rep is graduating, is going to be off to college soon for next year. We had 2 teachers, 2 board members, 2 administrators, director of instructional support, the assistant superintendent, and superintendent. So we started with that group, and you will see as we move along that we'll be expanding, and if I've already expanded that group. We sent out requests for qualifications from some potential consultants, and the committee got those proposals in, and we actually had an organizational meeting to look at all those proposals. We interviewed 2 of the 3 consultant groups who submitted to us, and we selected Great School Partnership to begin our work. We began in November. Actually, we're collaborating with our facilitator to lead our committee. And we were going to complete a draft of a comprehensive 5-year strategic plan. So Cynthia and I met with that person, and then to start to discuss the whole scope of the project, and in January met again to really develop that work plan for our committee and for our staff for the remainder of the school year. If you look at this graphic, this is what's going to guide us through this whole process. And I'm going to go through each one of those steps in a minute and say what we've done and what we have yet to do. So there's a portion of laying the foundation, seeking community input, drafting a portrait of graduate, which we'll talk about in a minute, and then drafting the strategic plan itself. So laying the foundation, this was really critical work we did. We were looking at who are those stakeholders that we want to help support this work. And we developed a timeline with really specific goals with our strategic planning committee. I'll say January to September 2020. You'll see that September, that gathering data from community groups using focus groups and surveys. And then at the end, the last part will actually finalizing that portrait of a graduate. Now we'll get in a little bit deeper to what we've done in each one of those categories. You may say, what does a portrait of a graduate have to do with a strategic plan? Well, a portrait of a graduate expresses our community's hopes, dreams, and priorities for our kids. What do we want to see when our kids walk out the door from Freeport High School? It's a process designed to engage all stakeholders in our community. And when we have that portrait of a graduate, it's going to guide the work for the strategic plan. These are key questions that we've asked so far staff members that we've worked with. And actually, Cynthia and I worked with educational technicians who are unable to attend a PD we had for other educators in March. And these are the key questions we asked groups today. First of all, what are your goals, hopes, and dreams do you have for our young people in our schools? What knowledge, skills, and experiences and character traits do you think will be essential to achieve these goals, hopes, and dreams? What ways do you think our schools currently help our kids to develop the knowledge, skills, and character traits that are identified? What ways do you think our schools can help students have the experience they need to achieve them, and at what ways do you think our schools could better prepare learners for life? So those are some key, very broad questions that we asked our staff members, and we'll be doing a similar process with community members and also through a survey. A portrait of graduate is really our North Star for our process, and it's going to articulate how we're going to make this vision, our values, a reality over the next 5 years. And then that will result in, hopefully, and when we're culminated in a strategic plan. So now let's look at each one, laying the foundation. What do we mean? What have we done? These are things that we've actually completed, and all of these first ones were done in January. This is the first, as Cynthia and I met with the members from GSP who are doing our work with us to really look at, we want to make sure our committee represented community and students. We put together a calendar. We wanted to make sure our plan had equitable community engagement and look at populations and plan like what the outreach might be. We did that with our committee. And then develop a plan for some updates to the board. Tonight's that update for you because we're very early on in the process, and then establish a plan and timeline. The next part went into seeking that. So that's just the foundation. And then seeking community input. Sort of that why statement. We're looking at what's our process. We've had multiple meetings. In our January meeting, we really looked at for questions, for community input, questions for data survey. What are those focus groups we might meet with? Crafting those questions for the community for input on the portrait of the graduate, our mission, our vision, our core beliefs. Identifying outreach for the community feedback, and certainly one thing that was super important to all of us, I know it's important to the board and to the members of the community, is like how do we get to some of those marginalized populations so that they have a voice as well. And then we were to develop the key questions that you saw tonight and also questions that will be part of the survey. In February, we moved on to really look at what are those stakeholders. And we started looking at, well, where would we go? When might we go? What's our communication plan? And that's where we worked some more in February on that survey. In March, we did some community conversation training for our facilitators, and I know Karen Kelly were both there when we met with our staff in March, and they helped support that work. And that's when we had that initial conversation on the March 14th workshop day, and folks who are unable to attend, that's the March 14th day, and that was primarily some of our support staff. They met with Cynthia and myself today, and we collected their data, and that will be, again, added as part of the larger pool of data. In April, we met again, looking at, dates, times, messaging, community outreach. We found it important. We found that there weren't enough worker bees at the table, so we've solicited other folks to join us. And there's several other teachers from various schools who will be joining this group to be part of this work. During this month, there are going to be student conversations. The committee felt it was important if we could capture that from students right now. And our partners at Great School Partnership are working with our middle school and high school principals to talk about when that might be ideal to work with kids for that. The community outreach, we really took a pause on that because we were worried we were rushing too fast to do it this spring, especially with we got an annual budget meeting coming up, and then there were all those things like graduation. All those things are coming, and we really felt it was best to do that in early fall when people are fresh and they have fresh ideas. So that's the plan for early fall, to really get the word out that we're doing this and have those conversations, have our survey launch and so forth to gather additional insight and information. And then we're really going to start what are those emerging themes and doing some coding of that data. Here's where this is when you really look at that data analysis. We have more to collect because we have a survey we need to do, and we need to talk to community groups. So there's not a timeline there because that's sort of the next step once we have that. We're certainly going to we're going to look at what are those other pertinent data sets we may already have. For example, we're going to be providing achievement data. We're going to be providing some demographic data and so forth, so we can put that all into the bigger picture. And then we'll certainly be looking at analyzing that data, all of the data that we have, existing data, our focus group data, and things we've already, the survey data that we'll be collecting. And that will be created, the Strategic Planning Committee will look at that for analysis. Great School Partnership, that's one thing they do well, is they pool all that data, and so that it's decipherable, and the committee can look at all of it together and start looking at those emerging themes, and that will be their step at that point. And there's all, again, once we have that all together, we have our themes, that's when we start looking, what are those we're gonna draft some categories for Portrait of a Graduate. There'll be data under each theme that are gonna be used to capture that. There'll be a working group of that larger Strategic Planning Committee that's really going to help craft that initial portrait. And the school board will have there's a draft of that, it'll be presented to the school board, so there can be some questions asked by the board, some refinement on what the Portrait of the Graduate is. And after that's done, then we'll be able to work on mission, vision, and core beliefs. Then phase 4 of that is that's when we dip into the actual strategic planning. Based on that Portrait of a Graduate, that's where we're going to be writing those objectives, those strategies, those action steps. There'll be progress indicators for all of those, and certainly how do we know we're getting the correct information there, and certainly there'll be again, draft will be presented for feedback for that on that before it's gone to final approval. Be a lot of revision, working groups to look at all those objectives. We're going to be working to look at what are our data tracking structures for that. For example, like what's our frequency of progressing monitoring if we said that we're going to do this, how are we monitoring? How frequent are we monitoring this? And also it's going to be very important for the board that there are regular updates, that it's scheduled in, that you will know on a regular basis how we're doing on those strategic plan goals. And that will include drafting a progress monitoring calendar, so you'll know exactly when you're going to receive those updates. And then, the pie in the sky is on your June meeting of 2026. There's a finalized plan for that. Again, I would say sometimes slower is better. So if you're not ready in June, then wait till the fall to do that, or do it when you have all that information. And the plan is truly what the Portrait of the Graduate you want, and the plan is what you want it to be. And then we start the new journey. I certainly appreciate members of we've had some really dedicated members of our committee that have shown up, have done this work. It's good work. We're just at the baby step stages. The excitement really starts, I think, when we start having some of those focus groups, getting some more of that data in. And I know for some of us who are really data wonks, we're like dying to get our fingers on it to see, what are those emerging themes. But we're taking a pause for the committee to look at that, so that we don't have any preconceived notions until all that data's in. So that's where we're at.
All right, thank you, Jean, for that update. Does anybody have any questions regarding that? No? Okay. All right. So we will move on. Oh, letter B. Oh, letter B,
Yes.
that's right. I'm sorry.
I'll do my letter B really fast.
Okay.
My resignation for B is Madeline Lean. She is a DCS teacher. She's resigning at the end of this school year. So her name will be removed for folks going on for continuing contract, because she won't be with us.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, so now we have no administrator reports, board comments, policy review. Look at us whipping through. Everybody's happy. All right, and so no unfinished business, but we have new business, which is consideration and approval of the comprehensive education plan. Do you want to say, Cynthia, hello. Okay, Cynthia is going to talk to us a little bit. Thank you.
Is that on? Yes, it is. Okay. This is our annual review of the updating of the comprehensive education plan. By law, you are required to.
Sorry, I should get a motion on the floor before we start.
Oh, that'd be great.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So, do I have motion for consideration and approval of the comprehensive education plan? Kelly and Malik, thank you.
Okay.
I'm writing
Go
that
ahead.
down so I
Thank
can
you.
take it back with me and put it in my notes. Okay. So we'll take two. Annually, you are required to approve the comprehensive education plan that is required by law for us to do. So I'll just jump down to like halfway down where it says, here are the updates to the comprehensive education plan. I would also invite anybody who's curious or wants to see the binder that's this thick in my office. It's always accessible to you. So there's several categories, and I usually just will the ones that are underlined and bulleted are the categories that have been updated this year. So there are probably 20 or 25 other categories. So the first one is affirmative action. And as you all know, because you sat through these board meetings where we've updated all of those affirmative action policies, those were all updated. In the personnel plan, we just recently updated the supervision and evaluation of professional staff policy. Student dropout prevention, Cheyenne is on that committee, and she was at that meeting where we reviewed and approved the dropout prevention plan. And then special education plan is an annual thing. You see that on there every year. And then the crisis response plan was updated this year. That's how we respond to incidents. So there was a very detailed update to that this year. And then the ESSA funds, that's the grant money, the title money, that's what those grants are what I oversee every year. So every year I just change that out to the updated grant approved application. And then the school facilities plan. And that's it.
Thank you, Cynthia.
You're welcome.
Anybody have any questions? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We're good.
All right. So, oh, yeah, that's right. We got to vote to approve it. Thank you. I'm getting there. All right. So, if we have no questions, all those in favor? Great. None opposed. Thank you. All right, so now we'll move on to 14, which is personnel for consideration and approval to accept the nomination of the following personnel and to authorize the superintendent of schools to issue contracts for the 2025-2026 school year. Educators, do we read them out and then educators for the second year probationary contracts. Renee Bucknell, Kara Constantine, Elise Stumphy Hendricks, Kent Gemmel, Abigail Gervais, Allison Jin, Gabrielle Hankey, Abigail Height, Tristan Ingram, Juliana Kiley, Renee LaRoche, Rachel Lira, Katie Lutz, Jessica McCurdy, Katie McFarland, Elizabeth Newts, Dana Reynolds, Joshua Schmidt, Carolyn Volk, Madeline White, Alina Woods, and 2 for educators for continuing contracts, Jacqueline Adams, Claire Bowen, Molly Brooks, Paige Brown, Emma Dorian, Laura Dunbar, Dorothy Eckhart, Emma Everett, Olivia Glatter, Abigail Hunt, Morgan Johnson, Melissa Luce, Kayla McGinley, Heidi Richards, Jessica Trahan, and Kelsey Williams. Do I have a first and a second? All right, Mara and Danielle, thank you. We have any questions regarding that? All right. All those in favor? Great. Thank you. None opposed. All right. So we are right back to public comment. If there's anybody else that would like to make another comment? No? Okay. All right. So look at that. We're at adjournment. I would take a motion to adjourn. Steph and Danielle. Okay. All those in favor? All right. I guess we're good. Thank you.